The story begins with a cyber psycho attacking the cops. Thanks to the military implant, he has incredible strength that only the military could handle. The main character's name is David, and grows up without a father in a poor family. Gloria, his mother, is forced to work constantly so that David can afford to study at the elite Kurosaki Academy. In order to somehow save money, David uses illegal software, which is why during his class at the academy, all the equipment of other students failed. Compensation will have to be paid to Gloria, who had to humiliate herself in every possible way so that her son would not be expelled from the academy. During the trip, Gloria said that she works around the clock for David, and therefore she dreams of him graduating with honors from Kurosaki Academy and breaking out into the people. Coincidentally, they ended up between the criminals and the limousine, which these criminals tried to rob. Due to the fact that the limousine was blown up, Gloria was unable to control the controls and therefore crashed into him. Medics arrived at the scene of the accident, but since the status of David and Gloria is rather low, they decided not to save them. David was not particularly injured, but Gloria had to undergo an operation, for which David was given a large bill. They have so little money that they changed the locks in the rented apartment. It turned out that Gloria took home a military implant. To pay for her treatment, David tried to sell it to a doctor he knew. But since this implant is wanted, they could not agree on its price. David's classmates do not like him, so the most status of them, Katsuo, decided to hint to David that he was not welcome here. And in order for him to understand everything for sure, Katsuo attacked David with the help of a chip. But the problems didn't end there. It turned out that although Gloria underwent surgery, she could not survive. David was offered conservation services, but didn't have the money for them, so he took advantage of cremation. He has a lot of debts and problems, because of which David decides to sue in himself a military implant that Gloria brought. In this he was helped by his friend doctor, but since David does not have the money for such an operation, they agree that if the implant cannot stand it, the doctor will take it for himself for free. After receiving the implant, David decided to take revenge on Katsuo, and therefore, right at school, he attacks him. He did this thanks to a new ability that allows him to move incredibly fast. The head of the academy decided to expel David, but he later found out that David has resistance to the implant, which means he has a reduced risk of cyberpsychosis. They decide to test him, and they will lure David with money promises. However, he constantly refused them. Then, on the train, David meets a chip thief, and with his ability, he catches her stealing. The girl's name is Lucy, and she finds out that David has a military implant, so she invites him to work together. Lucy makes the chips fly out of people, and David's task is to use his ability to catch them. Their plan is working, and they are getting a good catch. However, it turns out that David's body cannot withstand the frequent use of the ability, which is why he has to be taken to the hospital. But along the way, the nurse decides to take him hostage in order to sell his implant later. Lucy decides to save him and take him to his friend doctor. In order to continue using the implant, David will have to take special medications, namely immune blockers. For funds that will allow them to work for 2 days, Luz had to give all their earnings. After that, she calls him to her, where she talks about her dream. Lucy really wants to go to the moon, because there is nothing holding her here anymore. She gives him a chip that sends them artificially to the moon. It turns out that David is the first person she shows the place to, but it all turns out to be a trap. The cyberpunks start attacking him because their leader, Maine, bought this implant from his supplier, who turns out to be Gloria. David reveals that this is his mother, and she died just recently. David didn't have the money to pay Maine for the implant, so he offers them a deal. He wants them to take him on assignments, and in this way he will pay off the debt. To convince them, David demonstrates his abilities to them. He is introduced to cyberpunks and will work with Kiwi, Dorio, and Pilar. His task will be to steal data from Arasaki's bodyguard's car. According to the plan, they must watch for him at the bar, where another member of the gang, Rebecca, will detain him, and at this time David and Lucy will steal data. However, everything did not go according to plan, which is why David had to steal a car. They celebrate the work done in a bar, where David is paid his share, and they also give him immunoblockers, which will last until the end of the month. At that moment, a customer arrived, who entrusted them with this business. His name is Faraday, and he didn't like the way they did the job. According to the plan, they were supposed to steal the data, but not the car. This ruined the operation, so they will have to wait until the next task. It is very important for David to gain experience in a criminal case, and therefore he is ready to take on any job. To begin with, he was used as a courier. He is assigned to give Pilar new arm implants, and Rebecca turns out to be his sister. After that, Lucy took care of him, who decided to improve his respiratory system. Because she saved her more than once from different situations, they began to run. In order to somehow keep up with Lucy, David decides to sew new lungs into himself. Cyberpunks have gone on a new business. But while they got to the place, Pilar decided to find fault with the homeless. It turned out that this is a cyberpsycho with a bunch of implants, which is why he destroys Pilar and starts attacking others. Lucy tried to destroy him, but she failed to do so. However, David comes to her aid, who nevertheless destroys this bum. Lucy needed medical attention, and David walked her home. Lately, she has pulled away from him, but Lucy did this because she did not want David to go to another world. All she wanted was to spend as much time with him as possible. After that, they develop a plan to capture Tanaka, the head of Arasaki. In order to capture him, they decide to use his favorite creator, Jimmy Kurosaki. With the help of David, who distracted him, Maine had to catch Kurosaki. However, he can see what is behind him, so he presses a button that stuns those who have implants, and then he takes David prisoner. Maine and Kiwi could not help him in any way, so Lucy and Dorio are sent to save him. Kurosaki began to show David a departure to another world, thereby making him a cyberpsycho. However, Lucy freed him just in time. Dorio tried to grab Kurosaki, but he called in the military's bulletproof drones. To escape them, Lucy started hacking. Meanwhile, they were distracted by David to buy more time. After that, they were still able to neutralize the drones and take Kurosaki prisoner. With his help, they lured out Tanaki, who was immediately surrounded. Not wanting to give up so easily, Tanaki began to attack them with needles and then completely took on Maine. But with the help of David's ability, they managed to knock him out. However, not everyone was able to remain untouched. One of the needles flew right into Kurosaki's neck, which is why they failed to save him. Kiwi later tried to hack into Tanaka to get the data, but she was knocked out by Maine, who, due to a bunch of implants, is slowly becoming a cyberpsycho. Since Kiwi is in the hospital, Lucy was assigned to hack Tanaka, and David was supposed to watch them. During the hacking process, Tanaka must be unconscious, and for this, David needs to put him to sleep with a special apparatus. However, he could not do this because when Tanaki woke up, he recognized him as his student, and therefore began to beg for mercy and put pressure on him in every possible way. This greatly interfered with Lucy's search for information, and therefore Maine and Dorio had to intervene. But Tanaki could not stand it and went to another world, and since he is a platinum client, doctors and the military immediately moved to the place. David dragged Lucy to the car in which they were all supposed to escape, while Maine and Dorio stayed behind to clean up everything. There they were attacked by the police, from whom they defended themselves quite successfully. Hearing the shots, David decided to run back to help them. But while he was running there, Maine again caught cyberpsychosis, and without realizing it, he destroyed Dorio. He had nothing to lose, so when David urged him to run away from there, Maine wanted to stay there and go to another world with Dorio. When the military arrived, Maine could not oppose anything and therefore leaves for Dorio. A long time has passed since these events. Lucy left the team, and David became their new leader and quite successful because the whole city already knows about his affairs, and he even got his own fan base. He decided to change his approach to his business, and therefore he completely changed his body, sewing a bunch of implants into himself, one of which was Maine's arm, which he does not want to change to a newer one, despite the fact that it is not the best. David and his team are now significant people, and therefore their clients are also serious. Now they will work with Faraday, who has given David a new assignment. The plan is for him to work for Militech, Arasaki's longtime rival. He will have to deal with people who somehow interfere with them, while not arousing suspicion. They wanted to recruit Lucy for this task because they were so impressed with her hacking skills. However, David was never able to convince her to take the case. Lucy decided to show David a place outside the city, where she talked a little about her past. It turns out that she and some other children were brought up in Arasaki. They were made into netrunners, who then have to work for the corporation. When they completed all the necessary training, they were sent to the basement, where they had to search the internet for the necessary information. But not everyone managed to cope with this task, which is why many went to another world. They did not like the prospect of going to another world there, so they threw all their strength into escaping from there. But only Lucy succeeded. True, Lucy left the team for a reason. It turns out that she is secretly destroying other netrunners, and she does this in order to erase all data on David. Then David nevertheless begins to fulfill Faraday's order. When he eliminated one of Arasaki's bigwigs, he was overcome with panic, and therefore, when a peaceful worker entered their room, he liquidated her too. He did not like this act very much, because this woman has a son about his age, who had recently entered the Arasaki Academy. In them, he saw himself and his mother, and therefore he blamed himself very much for such actions. What was happening also did not like what was happening in Arasaki's office, where they very quickly realized that Faraday was behind this, and therefore they sent bandits to him to intimidate him. To remedy the situation, they decided to bribe him and entrust the task. He will be paid a large sum if he catches and brings Lucy to them. Meanwhile, David's condition worsens greatly, and the doctor suggests that he remove a couple of implants so that they do not have such a strong effect on the brain. But in response to this, David begins to attack him and demand to give him enhanced medicines, and only Lucy could stop him. The doctor gave him what he asked for, and added that he had very little time left to live. Despite all the problems, David is not going to remove the implants, as he remembers his mother and Maine, who had big plans for him, and therefore he feels responsible and wants to finally resolve all issues. At this point, Lucy needs to eliminate another netrunner, but this turns out to be a trap set up by Faraday with the help of Kiwi. Lucy was taken prisoner, but they did not forget about David either, and therefore they prepared a task for him. Faraday assigned him and the crew to rob Arasaki's convoy. With the help of another group of bandits, they managed to separate the convoy. But it turned out that the main truck does not penetrate any bullets, and it also rides on autopilot. To complete the mission, David used the ability, although it is highly undesirable for him to do this. With the help of a harpoon, they were able to stop the truck. However, while they were opening it, they were attacked by an elite Militech military. It's all because of a thing in the truck called an exoskeleton, and it's made by Arasaki in order to capture a huge portion of the implant market. At this moment, Faraday, under the guise of Lucy, calls David and says that in order for them to escape from there, David needs to use an exoskeleton with which he can defeat the military and save everyone. When he began the process of implanting the exoskeleton, Lucy ran away from Faraday and called David. She said that this is all a trap in order to test the exoskeleton on him. Therefore, in no case should he use it, because the consequences will be fatal. However, David has already begun a process that cannot be undone. Lucy never managed to escape, so David wanted to save her anyway. To begin with the help of this skeleton, he began to destroy the military. During the fight, he slowly went insane, but the drugs that the doctor gave him delayed his cyberpsychosis for a while. After single-handedly dealing with an elite Militech squad, he traveled to Arasaki, destroying the squads along the way. The top of Arasaki was worried about this situation, and therefore they decided to connect the strongest warrior they have, namely a Damas Masher, who is completely made up of implants. According to the contract, Faraday must eliminate everyone who knows about the skeleton, so Kiwi, with whom he built traps for David and the team together, was also no exception, and therefore he destroys it. However, before leaving for another world, she managed to contact David's team and inform them of the location of Faraday and Lucy, asking them to rescue her. Along the way, they were attacked by the most elite military, but David, with the help of his implants, was able to deal with them and get to the place. When Faraday was passing Lucy to Arasaka, David appeared and started attacking everyone. However, there was Adam. David's medication had run out, so it was hard to keep his sanity. Because of this, he decided to grab Lucy and escape from there. But Adam did not lag behind them, and when David tried to leave from there, Adam destroys Rebecca. It's hard to counter him, so David asked his driver to get out of here with Lucy while he stays to fight him. But without drugs, this is unrealistic, so Adam nevertheless destroys him, before admitting that David was one of his strongest opponents. After that, Lucy fulfilled her dream and went to the moon, but without David she did not get much pleasure. Be sure to subscribe to the channel, Like and press the bell so as not to miss new videos. AniMap was with you. Bye everyone.